Welcome back. We're in downtown Vancouver and we're having a dialogue on dementia. We're talking about keeping safe. And before the break, we started to just touch on strategies to try to reverse or to avoid injury from violence and aggression. And we're going to carry on with that part of it. So what do we do about it? And Liz, one of the things is that we focus so far on the relationship between two people, but there's a context for that relationship. And maybe you could touch on the importance of the environment, in this case, a care facility, and how important that is.
So I think one of the things that is very important is how comfortable the physical environment is for the individual, how safe they feel in the environment, how secure they feel in the environment, how able they are to sort of find their way around. Our signage is so very important. The level of stimulation in the environment is very important, and certain homes have the ideal sort of setting for supporting people to live successfully with dementia, and others really struggle in terms of environments that make sense.
Well, the facility that we've talked about so far that Jane Devji is the CEO of is Delta View, and a couple of weeks ago we went to Delta View and we'd like to show you inside the doors.
Our philosophy is, it's built on the gentle care philosophy, and a motto that we used to state all the time was hugs not drugs. Each person is different, each family is different, and each set of challenges that they're going through is different. So you have to tailor your strategies or your care approach to each and every person, and hence person-centered care. Our goal as a care provider is really to help any person be able to have their own activities of daily living. They're not in our home, but we are in each one of their homes. And so we might be in person A's home today, and that home may exist in the year 1946. And so we are in the year 1946 with them. And 3 doors down, we may be in the year 2011. And so our mannerisms and everything that we say or do is in conjunction with how they are interpreting the surroundings. Care in our industry should not just be focused on the resident themselves, but you have to also take into account the family members that come with them. They are your greatest asset. They're your greatest resource in the care of their loved one. When you're trying to care for people, you need to put yourselves in their shoes. So if we were to put our loved ones into a facility, how would we like it to be? What kind of staff would we like to have? How much services would we like to have? What kind of environment would we like to have? And how would we like to be treated? And so by trying to do that, we're able to try and replicate it the best we can. And that's what you see today.
And I should say, you certainly felt something. I felt something when I went into Delta View, Jane. It was a calm. And in spite of some of the scenes that I saw where I could see that people were having difficulties, you didn't feel any kind of crisis. And I loved it when Ali talked about if it's 1940, then it's 1940. If it's 2011, it's 2011. That was very calming. But in general, when you think about setting the context, we're not talking about specific strategies now, but you built a place. What were you thinking of? What were the top things in your mind so that you could create a safe place for everyone?
It actually started in 1988. I was looking after people with dementia and didn't have little bit of understanding what those residents needed. But I was using restraints, I was using jerry chairs, and I went to attend a session and somebody taught me, he just tied 2 of my fingers and showed me how, even though it was left hand, and I wasn't using my left hand, but it was irritating to me because all the time my focus was on that hand. And so what I wanted to create is a facility. And in those days, nobody wanted people with dementia. All they said, no, we will not admit. So we were admitting them, but we were not treating them with respect either. So we decided, okay, we're going to change. So we removed the jerry chairs. We removed the restraints. The physical restraints were basically removed in 1988. But still now, the other residents who didn't have dementia, and they were scared of the residents with dementia because they would come in, take a glass of water from them or their food, and so they were afraid of them. So I didn't know really what to do. So I thought, okay, I'm going to design a building which will be specifically for dementia residents. So we designed a 80-bed facility which was specifically designed for dementia residents. There is no end. There would be circular path inside the building, outside the building, 2 acres of grounds and beautiful land. And so that's what we designed. And that's where all the dementia residents were supposed to be in.
Yes.
But in 2007, we foolishly agreed to accept the Riverview downsizing beds. So we got those beds. So we had to empty that specifically designed building and move into the new building. So the new building was designed, again, resident-focused, smaller unit, self-contained and all this. But unfortunately, it doesn't have as good a walking path in there. So that is what I feel that I didn't do right, because I didn't expect to be having dementia building in the new building.
Well, I like that you're continually looking for ways to improve what you're doing. That's good news, but I appreciate that. But I saw, Gordon, you nodded your head as well.
I was just thinking, you mentioned the 80s. In the 80s, we were smoking in the nursing stations, and we were tying residents to rails.
Oh my goodness.
And we were tying residents to their beds. And I think that's how things have changed since then.
Yeah, boy.
So
That's quite a perspective, 30 years working, and so much more person-centered and humane now. Yeah. WorkSafe has put together some videos for training for helping people figure out individual strategies for keeping aggression and violence to a minimum, and certainly avoiding any kind of injury. And we're going to look at some of those videos now and use them as a jumping off point for us to talk about some of the good positive strategies, whether you're a caregiver at home or whether you're in a care facility. And the first one is called May I Come In?
Mr. Chalmers, it's Amy, one of the staff here. May I come in?
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chalmers. My name is Amy. I'm here to help you get your day started.
What?
May I raise your blinds, Mr. Chalmers, so we can let a little more light in here?
Yes, okay.
There, now we can see outside. It's beautiful outside. Today is your exercise class, Mr. Chalmers.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Here. I'll raise the head of the bed a bit to help you sit up.
Get out of here! Get out of here! You can't do it! You're not the one! I want Mary back. Go out of here! Leave
I'm sorry,
me alone!
I didn't mean to frighten you. You want to be left alone. I'll come back later.
Go! Leave me! Leave me alone! Go away!
I was just helping him sit up when all of a sudden he tried to hit me.
Really? Okay, well, we'll give him a few minutes and then we'll try again together. Oh, and I'll make a report. In the meantime, can you check on Mrs. Smith? She's in 325. Thank you.
So before we talk about exactly specifically the solution there, what was happening there, Liz? What do you see?
Well, one of the things you don't see in the little excerpt that we have is that this young woman is a casual staff member. And so as soon as you are a casual, which means that you don't work in a place and with the same people continuously, that puts you at much higher risk for not knowing the person the way that Jane was talking about. So, so what we saw was that this gentleman was willing to have her come in, and she certainly asked to be invited in, and he agreed. I think one of the challenges was that she was unfamiliar, but she didn't spend a bit of time with him to introduce herself, and she stood over him for one thing, which is, when you're trying to connect with someone, that's a pretty scary way to be addressed. So even though she did it from a distance, I think I would have spent a little bit more time connecting with him.
Tara, what did you see that was done there that was maybe right?
Well, I just would also like to pick up that I agree with Liz, and also I thought that the gentleman sent some signals that he was uncomfortable, and I didn't find that the caregiver was reading his body language very well, because I think he did send some messages signaling his anxiety, but she just kept going. So backing off, spending some time reading his body language, responding to that, I think would have been a little bit more helpful. I really appreciate that she knocked on the door and asked permission to come in. And she did, attempt to establish a relationship. She just didn't carry it very far.
Gordon, you probably had a visceral reaction to that, because that would be a familiar scene to you. What did you see?
Yeah, I see that she was very warm and vivacious, and that doesn't always cut it, like Tara says. You may think you're approaching in a gentle way, but she's right. Standing over the resident, with the resident looking up, this can often be a trigger. And I probably would have gone in slower, and I probably would have spoke quieter instead of Mr. Chalmers.
You're good.
He's still in bed, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think she could have been.
Anybody else want to add anything else to this particular scene that you saw that was right or not right?
The one thing that I think is really important was that the gentleman did show some not so subtle, but subtle-ish signs that he was uncomfortable. But if those were missed, then it could look like spontaneous aggression. But in fact, he gave very clear messages that he was uncomfortable. And so reading that body language and the subtleties of the body language are extremely important in providing care.
When the casual worker came out, she said it just came out of the blue. But in fact, there were some very clear signals that he was anxious and uncomfortable, and she didn't read them, unfortunately.
Nan?
I thought she did well in backing off and in leaving it, and perhaps there was someone else who would be able to work with him a little more easily.
I also like the fact that she did go immediately, and that she did get support, that there wasn't really overly dramatic, the scene with her co-worker at the end. It was, well, thank you for telling me. And I think that's sort of what you were saying, Jane, that there's a climate where that's okay to share that information as opposed to judgmental.
And also, I think the regular staff person said, we'll go back in together, which, is using that team approach. And it really is going to then make Mr. Chalmers more comfortable, but it's also going to make the casual worker more comfortable. So that was a very nice piece.
Okay.